Welcome along, everyone. We've made it to lockdown chat number 13. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to Tasmania's own international man of mystery, known and loved by martial artists all around the state. Never heard a bad word said about this guy. Northwest Coast martial arts stalwart. Of course, I'm talking about Poiyda Walker. How you going, Pete?
Hey, Brent. Good, mate. How's yourself?
I'm really good, and seeing you in your get-up tonight with your props there is, I think we're going to have a pretty entertaining chat tonight, mate. So happy to have you along, and hopefully
Awesome.
We can get some good insight to your background and your martial arts and you as a person.
Thanks for having me, Brent. And you gave me lucky number 13 as
did
well.
Indeed. I've been trying to get you on here for a bit, mate, and sort of working a time that worked for both of us was tricky at times, but we've done it, and we've managed to get number 13, which is even better, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's my lucky number.
Excellent. Tonight it's mine.
And no, I'm not missing it at all. Now, I'll take this off. This belt's giving me a headache, but I wanted to, and so are these nunchucks.
Yep.
I wanted to put this one on as it's my jiu-jitsu white belt, and I think before we even get into anything, I think white belt's probably the most important belt a martial artist can ever have, because regardless of what you get to wherever else, this is the one that starts it all, and many finish before they go beyond this. So that's for that one.
Excellent. Yeah, 100% agree with that, mate.
Get some of this gear off eventually.
That's all right.
I won't do a full strip in front of a camera or anything. I'm not that much of a voyeur.
Right.
Is that right? No, not a voyeur. Exhibitionist. Sorry.
Exhibitionist. That's it, mate. So, at one stage though, you started to lead a life of leisure for a little while, and referred to yourself as one of your occupations was man whoring. I know that, so perhaps a strip isn't totally out of the question.
I don't know if I was really man whoring as such. I think you're referring to my. I think it even still on my Facebook page as my occupation as a man of leisure, which right. I was taking a gap year. I just wanted to chill out and enjoy life, and I trained like my ass off at the same time.
Yeah. No, very, very, very good thing to do, of course. Have a bit of a gap year, a bit of a reassess of where we're going, that sort of thing. And you've certainly done that, and you're back into everything full steam now. So let's go back to your first introduction to martial arts. And it's one that I know because I met you when you were a pretty young fella. You're still a young fella in my terms anyway. So
I was going to say, let's just say younger.
Younger. Okay, I'm happy to run with that. All right. So as a 12-year-old, mate, you ventured upon, let's see if I can point in the right direction. There, Sanchikai. So how did that come about? Where did you train, and who got you along?
All right. Well, I can even preface that a little bit, because my cousin was doing Taekwondo, much like everybody. We were all Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee fans. I don't think even Van Damme had really hit the scene by then, because we're going back to 1986. And my cousin had done some Taekwondo. So at Nan's place in the backyard, he taught me I think it was a front kick, a side kick, front stance, and maybe a reverse punch. And I was like, hey, this is cool. But then, as you know, Sanchikai was massive back in mid-'80s, late 80s. There were schools everywhere. And I think it was one of my schoolmates, he was in my class, Brendan McCoy, had been training up at Reese High on a Saturday about lunchtime with Maggie Phillips. And he's like, come along. And yeah, I can still remember the day, that first class, like the back of my hand. I know it that well. I rocked up. I was wearing my camo pants. I had my pale blue King Kong Bundy t-shirt on. Probably looked like a real dickhead. And yeah, rocked up and we did the class. I remember being forewarned because there were some guys like Nigel Gillies and Stephen Gillies there, like both mascot black belts at the time. Russell Phillips was there. He used to help his mum out. And yeah, we started out, like, warmed up with a game of Sanchikai basketball, which was fun. And yeah, Maggie was just an awesome first teacher to have back then. That was November 86 when I did my first session there.
Nice.
And yeah, kept going. If I just keep going sort of along a little bit,
yep.
I think by December that time, because it would break and we'd have like the whole school holidays off, and I tend to be a little bit obsessive. So by December, Christmas is coming up, and I'm like, I don't want to stop training until February. And Mal Lomax was taking the class at the surf club down here in Devonport, which has worked out even better because I'm only like 500 metres or whatever from the surf club here. So I could walk down, ride my bike or whatever and do the adult classes. And some of us mascots were allowed to go along and train and stuff. So yeah, over the summer I got to train with Mal, and then when things got back to normal, I'd train Tuesday and Thursday nights down at the surf club with Mal and all the seniors that were there, and then Saturday afternoons I would do the class with Maggie.
Sounds perfect, mate. Very good introduction. Couldn't have got it from anyone better, of course. Yeah. Yeah, so that was your early Sanchikai, and I remember going on to some of the camps that were at Port Sorell, and you there as a young fella with your luscious locks and nickname,
yes,
of course, because of those luscious curls that you had back then.
Yes, no, it was a bit of a wasn't quite an afro, but it was a well-deserved nickname of Sheep.
Yes, no, absolutely. And back then you were a likeable young fellow, as you still are, of course, but you were very passionate about it. And my early memories of you were, wanting to get as much info as you possibly could about what you were doing. And I think that's something that you've carried forward all through your martial arts. You were one of only a handful in Sanchikai's history, and Sanchikai's been going 48 years this year, and there's been less than 10 people that have earned a mascot, which is your under 14s black belt, a junior under 18s, and then you went on to get a second dan as a senior. So that's a great achievement, and like I said, one of only a very select group over Sanchikai's history.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, no, it's a great achievement, mate. And so from Sanchikai, let's talk a little bit about that before we move on, because it was a big part of your your martial arts journey early on.
Totally.
Go for it, mate. Give me some insights, and then I'll prompt some other stuff because I remember some stuff as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the camps, I've just got a little bit of history here with.
Oh,
you probably got one of these yourself.
Yes. Well, I did have. I think I've long grown out of it, or it's fallen to bits because I wore it that much. Yeah.
I was a pretty big sort of mascot in junior. I think I stopped growing from about 15 upwards anyway. Maybe not outwards, especially with this whole COVID stuff going on. But so obviously got to meet all you guys at the camps that we used to do at Port Sorell, which was always a fun thing, especially you let a whole bunch of kids there run amok, and of an evening when the instructors and stuff kind of wound things down a little bit. Us kids would run amok, we'd run over to the other camps and raid their kitchens and generally just be little hooligans. But that was sort of the thing that you do. But I also remember some of the younger adults being hooligans and ending up in a pond in freezing waters. Not naming anyone, Brent Kettle, Brad Lote.
Yeah, yes, yes. No,
which was kind of a bit of a standout from that camp.
yeah, and created good memories, I guess, Pete.
Yes.
You still remember it. Wasn't the memories were are certainly strong for me about that. Probably not as good as you standing on watching us doing it, but no, certainly good times to camps, mate, for sure.
Yes.
Other times
Benny,
sorry, go on, mate.
was that the Benny the Jet camp, or was that a different one?
I think it was a different one, actually. Yeah, it was one of the different ones. I'm not 100% sure which one, because we did get down there a fair bit, which was really good. Now, Tasmanian Karate League. Do you remember these days?
Zulus versus the Wizards.
Zulus versus the Wizards in the final. Yep. So, just give our listeners a little bit of an insight into what the Tas Karate League was, I guess.
Okay, well, my memories of it, we had, it was basically all Senchikai based. There was Wizards, which were Launceston. There was the Zulus, which were Devonport. There was Burnie. I can't remember what they were called.
Vipers, I think.
Vipers. Georgetown were the Dragons, weren't they?
Yep.
And there was a West Coast team as well, wasn't it, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, West Coast Warriors.
Warriors.
Yeah, and
there wasn't?
Yeah, I think there was a Hobart side. I can't remember what they were called. I think Ned Kelly had a side down there.
Yeah, that sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah.
I remember Ned because he caught us out with our camp shenanigans one year and stood over us as we had to pump out the push-ups on the knuckles on the gravel outside the gym. Yep. Or the hall or whatever at Camp Banksia, which was pretty horrible, I remember. The rock sticking into your knuckles. Or character building, I think.
I think that's what we call it, Pete.
Yeah. That's it. We used to travel around. We'd have home and away matches. There was a junior team. I don't think there was a mascot team, was there?
No.
No, junior. And was it senior A and B team?
That's
or just
correct.
Senior?
Yep, no. There was A and a B side, I think, for each time.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I had to fill in for the B side a couple of times, if I recall, but against the seniors. By then, I think would have been maybe 89, 90.
Somewhere around
if I remember correctly. Yeah. So by then, I was starting to sort of grow into manhood, I guess, being about 15, 16.
Starting to fly around with those feet, mate, and jumping around the place.
Yeah, that's it. I remember coming against Woody at the alley here in Devonport. I remember trips to Georgetown. I remember trips to Launceston, which was like it fighting in a nightclub. It
was night moves in the Kingsway.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, too young to have ventured to a place like that at the time, but I'm sure you seniors knew it well.
Yes, well, Steve Hayes actually ran the security at Night Move, so that's why we knew it fairly well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So excellent. So that's sort of Tas Karate League, early Sanchikai sort of stuff. Now, you continued your training from there went to the Wing Chun Academy after that. Is that correct?
Well, it was a fair while later that I got to Wing Chun, but that's kind of in a roundabout way, as I sort of kept up with Sanchikai, and then I sort of moved away from it as I got, I guess, wooed by the rock and roll lifestyle for a bit. I was working with a sound engineer, just doing basic roadie work and load-ins, load-outs, and then went back to Sanchikai for a little bit and was doing just training with Angela Phillips, and then moved away again. And I lived up in Lonnie for a little bit, and then I came back, and then I got back to Sanchikai again, probably 2003 it must have been. Late 2003, and then sort of did that. Mal came down for a camp. He was like, the week before the camp, I was still a brown belt at the time. You drop back going from junior to senior and stuff. And I rocked up to class. I'd been training about 2 months without my belt because I couldn't find it. So I was in my shinobi gi, but I was just, or maybe I wore a white belt that I had floating around. I can't remember. But I was doing that, and then Mal's come down and obviously recognised me straight away. And he's gone, "Oh, you coming to camp?" I go, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to be there Saturday. I've got to work Sunday," when I was in the music shop. And he goes, "Oh, right, you're grading." So I had to, with 3 days' notice, I had to do my senior black belt at camp.
Yep.
So that was I don't know if you'd say a baptism of fire. It was, I guess, in a way back, because there were all Queenslanders there, there were all the Victorians there, and there's a guy that they don't know doing a black belt grading at camp. So it was 15 rounds of being headhunted.
Yep.
Just they were trying to kill me, and by the end of it, I was a wreck. Forbesy, one of our guys who you probably haven't met, he ended up carrying me up the stairs afterwards. I was just a mess.
Yep.
But I got it. And, it made an impression on quite a few at the camp as well, because it was just, I think I just got through it on pure heart.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you've always had plenty of that, mate. So got the black belt, got to second Dan, mate. So when did your Wing Chun journey begin?
Probably at the start of, realistically, at the start of 2006. What and how I got there was before I got my second Dan, or between Knee Dan Ho and Knee Dan, I'd been at a camp with Brad Lowe. And after that, he's like, "Oh, yep, come up and we'll do some training." And sure enough, I rock up to Brad's and we run through all of our forms and we do like a bunch of weapon stuff and everything. He's like, "Do you want to come down the shed for a roll?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know how to wrestle. I'm all good." Like I'd watched Hulk Hogan and shit back in primary school and stuff, yep. Thinking, yeah, I can handle myself. I always managed to out wrestle most of my mates. And he absolutely tied me in knots. Like we chucked the gis on and he tied me up like a pretzel. And he showed me a couple of things as well, like bridge and roll and armbar from mount and a couple of things. Like Brad was only blue belt at the time. And then I'm like, right, I've gone home after that, absolutely destroyed. And next week, sure enough, I'm back. And it's been the same drill. But second time around, he's commentated while doing it. So he's telling me what he's going to do before he does it. He's like, "I'm going to get you in a crucifix choke you now." And I've got no idea what a crucifix is, but I'm like, "No, you're not." And then next thing, tap.
Yeah.
And like he was training at PCYC with like Chris Stone, Sandy, Paul, Jim, Brad, Steve Wallace, all those guys were training there at the time. So the following week, I rocked up to that class and sort of got my introduction into jiu-jitsu with those guys at the PCYC. And Chris has gone to me, "Well, why don't you go see Stu Clayton down in Ulverston because it's closer," as I was living in here in Devonport still. So about a week or two after that, I rocked up, did a jiu-jitsu class. There was a woman that was like barely up to my armpits, a little small blonde woman, probably 50, 55 kilos. And I'm scared of where I'm going to put my hands, like brand new to the sport. And then she just latched on and armbarred me. And I was obviously tapping out because you don't want a broken arm. And I'm like, gone home demoralised, but I'm also inspired at the same time because going, wow, like if someone that small can do it, then I've got hope I'll eventually get there.
Yep.
And I obviously knew of the Gracies from UFC, and I watched a bit of that stuff as well. So I knew a little bit of the history of it and everything, even way back in the 80s, like it was in Blitz magazine and stuff. But then, yeah, and I was still doing Sanchkai at the time, so I only wanted the ground game. And Stu kept going, oh, come try some Wing Chun, come try some. I'm like, no, right, I'm right. And then it was, by about 2000, start of 2006, he wore me down. And I'm like, right, I'll come to a Wing Chun class. And eventually got hooked on that. Just straight back, all the way back to white belt. So eventually, the second Dan black belt got hung up, and I was a white belt and student again, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
it's like a whole new system to learn.
Yeah, no, good. And been doing it ever since. And obviously, Stewie has the BJJ classes there as well, and you've been doing that ever since. So you're currently a first degree black belt in the Wing Chun.
Yep, that's
fallen off the chair. No, there it is.
That one there. Yeah, first degree black belt.
Beautiful. And your current grade for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Is purple belt, 3 stripes.
Beautiful. So that would make your next grade pretty much brown belt, is it, mate?
Oh, yeah, 4th stripe or brown belt, whichever comes first.
Yeah.
You never know with these things, as everyone that's done jiu-jitsu knows.
Yeah.
Some people skip a stripe here or there, which I did when I got my purple belt. Overstepped a couple of stripes and got the purple belt.
Yep. So how long ago was your purple belt awarded?
I think it's going to be, it was at a John Will seminar in Ulverston. I think it's going to be 6 years in November.
Yeah, it is.
So it's been,
yeah. I was actually there. It was my first introduction to John Will. Yeah.
Yep.
So, no, that is correct. No, so, well, you might be due soon. Who knows, mate? We wouldn't know.
Who knows?
No. Okay.
It's a pretty long tenure, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think eventually you start to get close, and you get it in sight, and you're like, oh, I'm going to get it here, or I'm going to get it there, and then it may or may not happen, and then it gets to a point where you don't care.
Yep.
And that was what happened with my purple belt as well. I just go, I'm not caring about it. I'm just going to roll and train and just enjoy the process, and it'll come when it comes.
Absolutely. And I think anyone that's been around the martial arts for a long length of time probably gets to that point with the grade that they're at, for sure. Let's just step away a little bit before we will come back to the BJJ, because I've got some questions I want to ask about that, but we will step away from it for a little bit. Anyone that knows you well or follows you on Facebook will know that you're a little bit of an avid collector, I think would be the right way to put it. Yes.
Yes, that's the politically correct way to put it. But we don't have to be politically correct, mates.
Exactly.
You can say I'm batshit crazy. I don't care.
Well, I won't go as far as saying that, because you'll choke me out next time I see you. But let's touch a little bit on some of those collections. So I know that you've got a pretty decent DVD and CD collection.
Yes.
What sort of numbers are we talking, mate?
CDs, couple of thousand. I worked in a music shop, so I got lots cheap, and I used to go to Melbourne and visit some of our suppliers, and the first thing they do when you walk in the door is, here's a bunch of free CDs.
Yep.
So that was a great way to do it. Like, cool, I'm getting free stuff.
Yeah.
So it's up over 2,000. It could be close to 3,000. I don't have a full count. I know I've got a wall full, and I've got a bunch in boxes as well. So it's pretty high. DVDs is probably, I've got 2 racks that are probably full, and there's a couple of stacks on the floor. So it's up over 1,000.
Right. Which is a fair number, Pete. Let's be honest there. Now, I know that perhaps you're a little OCD on the organisation of said DVDs. How are we actually categorising them at the moment? Are we going alphabetical, or we got them in genres? How are we rolling with that, mate?
Yeah, I've just gone alphabetical. There's part of my brain which wants to go in genres. There's part of it that wants to go sort of by leading actor, especially like for martial arts. It would make perfect sense to have all my Bruce Lees and then all my Chuck Norris and then all my Van Damme, my Steven Seagal, my Jet Li, and then probably the miscellaneous Hong Kong ones that I've got that don't have any of the real big names in them, but are still great movies just the same, if not a bit cheesy. And there's also the idea of maybe going by director, whether it be like Quentin Tarantino or Kevin Smith for the more comedic stuff, or whoever else. I'm not so nerdy that I know all of the who's directed what or everything like that.
I reckon you've got a fair idea. I'm not saying you're nerdy either, but I reckon you've got a fair idea of that.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Not
okay,
too much.
so if that's not nerdy, okay, can we touch on the pop vinyls, mate?
Yes.
What's that about?
Why not?
Yeah, what's that about, mate?
I don't know. I never intended to collect them.
Have you got one within arm's reach? You can show the listeners exactly what we're talking about, because they're little figurines, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I don't have any within arm's reach here. They're in another room at the moment. They're like little bobbleheads. So they've got the big head and the little body. And a lot of them, yeah, their heads sort of shake. I accidentally, it was only a couple of weeks ago, bought a second Spider-Man, but had the exact same one. And for whatever reason, I'm going, I don't have that. And I bought it and get home and look on the shelf, and there it was. So I've taken it out because I keep them all in the boxes, being the nerd that I am. Like, you don't play with toys.
Yep.
You just buy them in a box and then look at them. And I was like, okay, so it's like Spider-Man in a stealth suit, and I've got a black Mazda. So I was like, right, I've taken him out and I stuck him on the dash. So as I drive along, he's just bobbling away, just for my own amusement.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
it's fair enough, mate. I'm not
like I never intended. Like, I put the question out there on Facebook probably 3 or 4 years ago, and a few of my mates have gone, "No, don't do it, because it's a rabbit hole that you don't want to go down." So I left it a few years, and then I was at Shiploads up here, and there was like a Captain America one and Iron Man. I'm like, okay, I think I bought Captain America. Oh, no, I think I bought Iron Man first, and then like I went back the next day and I bought Captain America, and there was like a series from the movie Civil War, and then like within a week I bought Black Widow and Scarlet Witch and Black Panther and a couple of others that were all available there. And then I was basically abseiling down into the rabbit hole, just getting whatever I could. And now I don't have a huge collection by some means, but I have a very big collection by others, and I've probably got about 250 now.
Yeah, that's a pretty big collection, Pete. I'm sorry, but it is. Now, other stuff along different but similar lines, Masters of the Universe, what are we doing there?
I collected them as a kid, so I still had a lot of the stuff that I had as a kid, but I also sold some when I was a teenager. I'm like, Masters of the Universe, I don't need that shit anymore. And I sold off a bunch of the figures, but I've since gone back and I've recollected most of them. And I've even got, like I said earlier, but there's the front half of Castle Grayskull. I've got Snake Mountain there. I've got a tub just full of stuff. I can't even really see what's there. It's got Panther. I've got a bunch of the vehicles, a bunch of the figures. There's Cyclone. He used to just spin around and stuff, but I only collect them up to sort of the point that I collected as a child.
Okay.
So
Just renewing the collection?
Yeah, just sort of completing it, I guess, is probably a better word.
Yep. Yeah, no, cool.
Completing the collection.
Nice.
Which I'm almost there, probably 95%, I reckon.
Very good. Okay, now guitars. We can see some in the background. I know you're a big music fan, and we will touch on that shortly.
Yeah, I can see about 30.
Okay. Yep. No, that's a few. And you play guitar, I hope.
Yes, that was one of my distractions away from martial arts, especially back in the 90s. I got very obsessed with that. This was my second guitar, but my first one that I really spent a lot of time with. It's had a few modifications since. It's got a couple of old skateboard stickers on there, front again from childhood. But this is probably the one that I've spent the most time with, because at one point I was practicing 7-8 hours a day. I'd just play and play and play. And if I can get it back on the wall without dropping it on my head. Yes.
Beautiful work. Well, that's good, mate. So that's so 30 guitars. Do you roll through them and have a bit of a strum on every one of them now and then?
Maybe not every one, but they all have like a lot of different purposes. Like this one, for people that know guitar, they'll know what I'm talking about. But this one's tuned in D standard. D standard. That one's just standard tuning. So's that. I've got some acoustics. I've got a couple of 7-string guitars. I've got an 8-string guitar. I've got a couple of, I've got a bass guitar somewhere. So, yeah, there's different tunings with them and everything. So they suit a different purpose.
Yep, cool. Okay, that's guitars. We're moving right along with the collections, mate. We'll so Lego is a newer one, or I assume you had Lego as a child.
Yes, it's a new one and an old one. I kind of again, I collected classic space Lego as a kid, so I had like the spaceships and still got most of those sets. Mum sold a few back like in the 90s, I guess, and there are a couple that were sort of always holy grails when I wanted them as a kid. So I've managed to go back and collect them. But again, a rabbit hole I'd never meant to fall down or not fall back down.
Yeah, and you've created Poiyda in Lego.
Yeah, Poiyda, that's my Lego city, which is out in the dining room at the moment.
Yep. No.
So,
all right, let's move on. Otherwise, we will actually go down a collecting rabbit hole, I think.
Yes. Yeah, and you even left my records out of it, so that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, so obviously records, working in the music shop, Red Hot, which is unfortunately gone now, has it altogether?
Yes, it closed down a couple of years ago. That was a guitar shop as well, so that's how I got a lot of guitars. It was being surrounded by everything daily. It just kind of fuels the excitement. Yes, fuels it all and makes you, I guess, just surrounds you with those passions.
Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. All right. Let's talk a little bit about something I don't know a great deal about, but you know quite a bit about, is death metal. Now, I'm going to throw a couple of names of bands at you because I know you know these bands, and then I'd like you to give me some more band names, because they're all fairly descriptive, these band names. So things like Necrophagist, Flesh God Apocalypse, Obituary. So some of the names I came across on your Facebook wall. What else is going on out there, mate, as far as names go? Because they're beauties.
Oh yeah, there's some classics out there. Obviously, more mainstream bands like Deicide, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, who featured on the Ace Ventura movie, first one.
Right.
if you recall, Ace going into a club and there's a death metal band playing, it's Cannibal Corpse, which were there at Jim Carrey's request. Like he's a bit of a metal fan himself. There's some pretty extreme ones out there, sort of like, I guess, Dying Fetus or Infant Annihilator. Some that can be a little bit more offensive as well, which I won't go into, just in case someone goes, oh, he said this word or he said that word. So I'll tone it down just a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. So some interesting names, and you've seen a few of these bands live, I assume, Pete?
Yeah. Two of the three that you mentioned, I saw Obituary in Hobart near the start of the year, and Flesh God Apocalypse last year as well on Halloween. So there's been a few of these bigger international bands coming down to Tassie. Obviously, Necrophage just kind of don't exist anymore, and they never came to Australia anyway. So I'm bummed that I never got to see them, but they're probably the absolute elite of technical death metal. There's different subgenres within it. Flesh God Apocalypse are a bit more symphonic, and they're from Italy. So it was great to see them. And yeah, Obituary a bit more old school. They've been around kind of since the beginning in the late 80s.
Yep. Okay. All right. So plans to see any other bands, mate? What's on the bucket list? I know you like your bucket lists. Give me.
Yes. Carcass, who I was meant to see right as this COVID-19 bullshit came around. Like, that was, I can't remember the exact date that it was scheduled for, maybe 20th of March or something, 18th of March. It was a Tuesday night. It was going to be down in Hobart. Had my ticket purchased, had my accommodation booked. Gig got cancelled. And then I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'll go down to Hobart. I'll go either HMAA or out to Adam Newton's school or to the 10th Planet School down there with Jem and Nat and do some training. And then gyms are closed. I'm like, oh, shit. Just, shit really hit the fan with all my plans for that. So I just end up, staying up here as things got a bit crazy. So, the big Carcass, Testament, who are sort of in that vein of Metallica, not really a death metal band as such, would be on the bucket list as well. Dark Tranquility from Sweden. Can't wait for them to maybe tour, hopefully come to Australia, hopefully get to see them. Someone else that popped up, an old Swiss band called Coroner. They're going to do a world tour, so I'd love to see them. They've been out to Australia before. The list is almost endless, really. Yeah.
So, I don't think I've heard of any of those guys, but that's okay. It's not my thing. All right.
No, Metallica would be the one.
Metallica, well, yes, I have heard of those guys. All right.
I'm just going to take this gi top off because.
Right, mate. Yeah. This is how it begins, Pete.
It's starting to get warm.
Yep.
I mentioned 10th Planet, so now it's no gi time.
Yeah, I like that. That's actually a good reference to a good little segue to where I want to go next. You're as a martial artist, you travel around to a lot of the clubs in Tassie. Are there too many that you haven't been to?
Well, I've done some. Yeah, there's probably a bunch that I haven't. As far as jiu-jitsu goes, I haven't been to Jerry's school at HMAA, and whether it be for one of the open mats or whatever, I've missed them for whatever reason when they've had like the gradings. That's probably the main one. I've obviously, Damus invited me out to his at start only a few weeks ago, and I've trained with Damus a couple of times, and that's on the list to get to. I have to get down to 10th Planet again a few times. I've been down there a couple of times. Been to Adam's school at Sorel a couple of times when he's done his open mats. Obviously, spent some time at the Wookiee Furnace.
Yep.
with you guys in Lonnie. I never got to LBC when Steve was taking classes out there. He actually, after one of the Valor events, we were talking afterwards, and he was like, "I'll come up and take a class and stuff," which I'm like, "Yep, cool, love to," but yeah, never made it. Just, I guess, schedules and didn't really, the stars didn't align for us with that to happen. Yeah, that's probably about it. Obviously, we went to, I guess it's Sabre Jiu-Jitsu, where we did the Kit Dale seminar.
Yep. Which was
I was lucky to be partnered with yourself for that one.
Yeah, I think I was the lucky one, mate, because I was pretty new when that rolled around, and well, I'm still pretty new now, only 5-6 years in. So, no, very much appreciated your help that day, because I needed all the help I could get, really.
So I got complimented by Kit Dale on an arm drag I did on him that day. The planets aligned for me to get that, but he still just smashed through my guard like I was butter and he was a hot knife.
Yeah,
didn't really stand a chance.
No, agreed. Yeah, it made me look absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, that's how it goes. So, how about early competition in BJJ back in the start? I know you competed a fair bit when you were lower grades and things like that, mate. Got any stories from back then, or guys that are still around that you might have competed against, that sort of thing?
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that, actually, because I got a story from my very first jiu-jitsu comp, which I think will be quite entertaining for the people. So obviously I was training in Ulverston, but I also used to rock up to the PCYC to train with all the guys there. And for this particular comp, it was down Hobart, so however I organised it to get a ride from Launceston down to Hobart with the PCYC guys in the PCYC bus. So we've rocked up at whatever time and headed down to Hobart. Comp's gone along. I think I managed to win 1 out of 4 or 5 matches with points. I can't remember if anyone's still training from that particular comp that I competed against anyway. But afterwards, it was like, okay, we'll go down to Salamanca to one of the pubs or whatever, and everyone's having a couple of beers. And as I don't drink, I'm like smashing down a few lemonades. And I remember Brad came up to me and he goes, "What are you drinking?" I go, "Oh, it's just lemonade." He goes, "We'll keep feeding them to you as long as you want. You're driving the bus back."
Excellent. Sounds like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I end up being the designated driver for the journey home. And I don't know how many more beers had passed. And I know there are a bunch of travellers picked up for the road as well. But somehow, and I don't remember how this happened, and there were quite a few of the Lonnie guys on the bus. It was like Stoney, Paul Butler, Steve Wallace, maybe a couple of others, maybe 1 or 2 others, not too many. But somehow Adam Newton ended up on the bus as well. He may have been kidnapped. He may have been coerced into making the road trip back up to Lonnie with no way of getting home, obviously, except maybe I think they were like, "Oh, we'll pay for your bus trip back." I can't remember if Jenny ended up on the bus or not as well. But yeah, so trip back. It's late at night. It's probably on 9 or 10 o'clock that we're leaving Hobart or whatever. And before you know it, I think by the time we make it before we even get to Campbelltown, they're off in the baggage department of the bus and they're having wrestling matches. And I remember Steve Wallace, clear as day, he's like, "Oh, get off me, eyeball." He's screaming, "Eyeball, eyeball." So I don't know if they were going for like get eye gouging or pokes or whatever into the thing, but it was a pretty sort of, I couldn't see it, I was concentrating on the road, but yeah, I could hear them banging around and stuff, and getting thrown over into the baggage department and stuff. So it was a pretty crazy sort of trip back for those guys.
Sounds like it. Yes.
So that was some shenanigans that they got up to for that trip.
Yep.
It was fun. But I competed pretty heavily as a white belt. I did the nationals one year. I did the Australia Cup down in Hobart, which was like it's Peter DeBean held comp. That was the one that Damus got his black belt at. Obviously, didn't know him back then. So I didn't do well at any of those, like the big comps. I think best I ever got in the local comps when we used to have 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 people per division. I got maybe a couple of third places, maybe a second place here or there. Competed a few times to blue belt, competed a couple of times as a purple belt. The last one, which was probably, 2020, must have been 2018. I went in like a month after having a stone bench top fall on my leg and slice it open. I couldn't train for like 5 weeks while it healed because they couldn't stitch it up or anything. It was just a big chunk out of my leg.
Yep.
And then I got a knee infection 2 days before the comp, and I couldn't even kneel on it. And I just I think I rolled once between like the start of January and the comp, which was like the 20th of February. I'm just like, what will be, will be. And yeah, a couple of the guys latched onto my left leg, which is the one that I had the infection in and the chunk out of it that had just healed and stuff. It was like, just got owned. I had no cardio.
Yeah.
I was 7 for 7 submissions out of 7 matches, but I was the one being submitted. So that was a bit of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it, mate. Yeah. As long as you're having fun, mate.
Someone's got to win, someone's got to lose.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's all part of the journey, mate. It doesn't really matter.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so that's jiu-jitsu competitions, mate. I know you guys down at the Ulverston gym or the Wing Chun Centre, you do a lot of kickboxing work because Stewie's got a lot of fighters coming through. So you're joining on the stand-up rounds, mate, and you beat a few of them up down there. That's still a heavy part of your cardio work, mate, doing the stand-up rounds with the young guys that are fighting in that?
Probably not as much now, just due to work kind of, because the way my work is scheduled and I work nights and stuff, it's probably not as much as it was like previously when I'd get to do quite a bit of training with the guys that were coming up to compete, whether it be for kickboxing, Muay Thai, or the actual MMA rounds for the guys that have gotten in the cage and done that stuff.
Yep.
So I know, my roster's changed around a bit, so I'll probably be able to get back and do a bit, but cardio is probably a bit more reliant on me these days, which is not really a good thing just for me to rely on that, as it's nowhere near where it was a few years back.
Yeah, well, with the passage of time, mate, I don't think anyone's is where it might have been back when we were 20-year-olds. So what are your hopes and aims as far as training goes for the remainder of 2020?
Remainder of 2020. Good, obviously, want to get back into rolling. I'd like to get around to some of the clubs, like maybe a couple of trips down to Hobart, obviously a few more up to wanting to train with everyone, miss rolling with all you guys. It's always a great learning experience. Obviously need to improve my cardio. There's been the chance, and I was starting to prepare for my second degree Wing Chun grading, which is something that I can work towards. That the next one's all based on the wooden dummy, whereas the first degree was all chi sao related. So that's the trapping hands and the touch contact sort of rolling sort of stuff that you see that doesn't seem to make sense until you kind of get in there and you can feel what a person's energy is doing and how it kind of how you can utilize that against them and so on. And our form of kung fu is pretty dynamic. So when I did that grading, there's a lot of takedowns in there, trapping and sort of a lot of the Wing Chun principles that people may or may not know, depending on sort of where you got your nearest weapon, the nearest target, or blindside positioning, or basically just ways to come out on top.
Yeah.
And there's takedowns in there as well. So we're doing hip throws, we're doing scissor takedowns, we're doing fireman's carry takedowns, double legs, single legs, all that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of a clinch work at a distance. So rather than sort of like pummeling, that's a bit further back. The wooden dummies are a different discipline, but there's a lot of cool stuff in there. And I think there's about 15 or 16 dummy sets that I've got to do, and then I've got to put them into practical applications, and that's about it for that next one.
It sounds fairly involved, mate.
Oh, there's a bit to it, but it's probably nowhere near as intense as the old Senchikai second dan gradings where you've got to do 50 rounds.
Yeah. So do you find with your Wing Chun that those principles like your sticky hands, that sort of thing, where you're feeling the energy of your opponent, that transfers over into your BJJ a lot, which is also a lot of feel involved in that, and sort of working out what your opponent's going to do prior to them doing it, that sort of thing. Does it transfer well between the two?
Yeah, I think it does. A lot of times, and I don't know exactly how it came about. I probably picked it up from Paul Butler from training with him in Launceston way back, that sometimes when I roll, I'll just close my eyes and I'll just feel what's happening, especially when I'm underneath. I can just sort of feel the weight distribution and the variances if someone's shifting their balance or whatever, and how I can actually use that to my advantage, or keep myself safe, or move into a position where I can get a sweep. Or as when I started out, I was a small guy against a lot of big guys, so I was always on my back, and I was always been pretty flexible as well. So getting my guard back was usually a pretty easy sort of thing for me. So then I became a guard player, kind of, especially as a white belt. I'll get out of bad position, get my guard, and then I eventually learnt to sweep people. And like when I started out, and most people knows as a white belt, you get on top and you're like, oh, where's this? I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Until they roll you off and put you back on your back, and then you start to feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's definitely a common phenomenon. But these days, mate, you spend a bit more time on the top, and you've developed your top game pretty well, which I certainly know from the times that we've rolled. You have all those purple belt tricks, mate, which are something I'm looking forward to learning more of. You show me a couple every time you come and roll, which I greatly appreciate, and looking forward to learning some new ones from you very soon.
More than happy to share us. I did a seminar with Pedro Sauer quite a few years ago now. It was same day as the Senchikai reunion in Melbourne. Must have been 2012 or 2011. I can't remember the exact year. But he's an 8th degree under Hicks and Gracie. And when he started training, he was saying when he started training at 14, like there was Hoist, there was Hoyler, there was Hickson, basically the entire Gracie family at the school. He said the best advice I can give to anyone is, as a white belt, like just for the first year, just practice your defense, and when whoever it was, whether it be Hickson or whoever, would tap him out, he'd be like, oh, that was great. Can you show me what you did? He goes, after a year, you know everybody's main attacks. So you've learnt the attacks, and then you eventually learn how to defend them. And yeah, he's a very humble man. He's probably only yay high to me, but so technical. Like, I was standing next to black belts. It was more of a Q&A type seminar.
Yep.
And like they go, oh, I'm having problems with this. And he's usually 2 or 3 moves away from submitting you wherever he was. And these black belts are scratching their head going, how the hell did he do that? Like he's under north, south or something. And then 2 moves later, he's got him in an armbar or a choke or something else. And you just look at him and just go, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's 40 years experience against 10 or 15 or 20 years experience. That's
and also sounds as though a reasonable pedigree from where he started.
Yeah, I think so. I think those Gracie guys kind of know a little bit of jiu-jitsu. They do okay with it.
A little bit of stuff, yeah. No, for sure, mate. Yeah. As do you and the guys down your way. There's some quality guys training down there, mate. Who are some of your main training partners down there? Give them a shout out.
Obviously, where I can, the guys that are competing pretty regularly, you got like Sam Perko's had a few fights in the cage and done really well. Mick Vanderwood as well. He's done a bit of both. He's done some jiu-jitsu comps. He's done combat jiu-jitsu. He's had a few cage fights. I mean, both Sam and Mick have got cardio for days. Like, you just can't wear them out. And, yeah, strong and explosive, so really tough guys to deal with. Steve Green's one of the guys that's a bit more kickboxer related. He's did a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but he's more focused on kickboxing as far as competing goes. Then we've got a couple of really solid purple belts in Brodie Thompson and Simon Hull. Simon's a bit of an older guy, but he studies jiu-jitsu, very cerebral, and he comes up with some weird, quirky stuff that he's found somewhere, and he just seems to make it work. And you go, oh yeah, bang, and then he's got you, and you're like, shit. And then you go a week later, but you see it coming, and you're like, no, too late, he's got me. And Brodie just is Brodie, like he's a triangle king. Absolute beast, and he doesn't seem to lose it, even if he has, because of work and family and stuff, he might have 3 months off, and he comes back and he'll still be the same as where he is. His cardio diminishes a little bit, but that's about it. We've got some good white belts, some good blue belts, a couple of new ones like Dominic, I don't know his last name, and Sam Morton. They're both tough, fresh blue belts. Like, I'm glad they got their blue belts like late last year, because then I don't feel so bad getting beat up as they're now blue belts and not white belts.
I understand that.
When they're throwing you around, it's like, it's a bit demoralising. Shouldn't be happening, but so be it.
They're young blokes, mate.
Yeah, young. I'm not sure, Don, but yeah, Sam's early 20s, very strong, very athletic, long limbs, loves his triangles.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. And obviously you've got Stewie down there.
Yep, Stu, obviously. He's got some old man strength and a few tricks up his sleeve as well, as you'd expect.
Yep. Yep. No.
But I do know a lot of their games pretty well, so I can see sort of what's coming before it comes, generally.
Yep. No, for sure. And so a good group of guys down there, mate. I know your junior program down there is very strong as well. Have you got a lot of talented juniors that are starting to compete, that sort of thing, mate?
I don't really know. Like, there's a couple of younger ones, but as I'm not really coaching there as much as I was maybe 5-10 years ago. Like, I was pretty heavily involved in taking junior classes and stuff, but just as the way things have panned out. But yeah, there's a few juniors which have got a lot of talent, and I've seen it happen a ton of times over the years. Like, I remember the day I got my blue belt at a comp, there was one of the girls that we trained, and she was basically knee-high to a grasshopper, absolutely tiny, and she destroyed all of the boys. She'd get on their back, and we weren't sort of doing submissions for like 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds, so it was just positional. And she'd get back control, and they just couldn't get her off. And the boys would go off the mat crying because they got beat by a girl, but she was awesome. But as a lot of them tend to, they move away. Sometimes they come back and have that sort of base. I've seen that happen a bunch of times with many that sort of, maybe they just get a little bit bored of it, whether it be an iPad playing Fortnite sort of gets their attention, or they get to 16 or 17 and discover boys or girls, or get to 18 and
stuff.
Pubs and cars. But there's often ones that will always just sort of come back to it, gravitate back.
Yes. I think everyone that's done any instructing or coaching or had classes has come across that phenomenon, of course. Because I'm sure, like yourself, you've been around for 30 odd years or whatever it is. You'll know that there aren't too many that were about back then that are still about.
No, there's been some that sort of have come and gone a bit, and obviously there's quite a few of the old school guys that I used to train with that I'm friends with on Facebook, and I've put stuff on, and they're like, "Dude, awesome that you're still doing it and stuff." I was like, "Well, you could still be as well, but I guess it's just what you want to do."
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, life happens differently for everyone, of course. Now, I think we're getting towards the end there, mate. Is there anything you want to add? Anyone you want to give a shout out to? Anyone you want to insult or anything before we leave it?
I don't know.
Have you ever insulted anyone, Pete?
I'm sure I have. My girlfriend, I noticed when I've come in closer, she's like messaged me that's like, "Have you mentioned me yet?" And she wanted a photo of the two of us up behind me or something. So I obviously should give Sherry a shout out. Otherwise, she'll probably knee me in the nuts or something. Yeah,
no, that's fair enough. All right, let's do better than give her a shout out, mate. How long have you had the relationship going? Let's go.
It's been together 3.5 years now.
Everything's going well in the relationship?
Yep.
That's the important thing, mate.
Happy little campers. So we live apart, so we don't drive each other too crazy.
Yep.
But still spend time together every day anyway. Yep. She only lives 500 metres, 800 metres, sort of couple of blocks away, so it's pretty close. If her kids need picking up from school or whatever and she's at work, shoot me a text message or however it goes.
So I've worked out your cardio plan then for the rest of the year, mate. Do not drive to her place ever. It's 800 metres, mate. You've got to run.
I've got to run, do I? Can I ride my push bike?
One way, perhaps. So next time it'll be there, you've got to run to get it. So run back.
Okay, we'll see how that goes for me. I did recently buy a bike.
A mountain bike? Did you go with in the end, mate?
Yeah, went with a mountain bike. Local shop here in Devonport looked after me. Pardon me. And having worked in retail, I like to support local businesses where I can. So that's where my hard-earned money went, just to get that sort of service and support.
Yeah,
with that.
That's good. Very important to support local, especially small business. I think that's important, especially for the rest of this year. If everyone made an effort to do that, I think it's going to help out the community in general.
Indeed, like a lot of this stuff I'm looking at here, they've got Toy World stickers on. I've got a good relationship with them for that sort of thing. And again, it's keeping the money here in Devonport.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely need to do that at the moment. All right, mate, I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate the time you've given us tonight, and I think everyone's got to know you a little better. If they didn't know some of that stuff, I'm sure they knew a little bit about it. And next time that you rock up to their gym, they're going to have plenty of ammunition to throw at you to try and put you off your game.
They can try. Thanks very much for your time, Brent. Putting me in with, like, you put me in with some of the big names like Priscus and Adam Newton and Jerry and Stu and Damus, and I feel like I fly under the radar a bit, so I'm in good company.
Yeah, look,
good company with names now.
Yeah, look, you're definitely in good company, mate, and your name fits up there with all those guys. You've been around the landscape for a long time, and you know your martial arts journey has been an exemplary one. You've always been an exceptional martial artist, mate, and I'm sure you continue to be so for the rest of your life. And anyone that's run across you, whether it be back in the Sanchikai days or your jiu-jitsu or your Wing Chun, always say, you know, Pete's one of my favourite guys. So that's a credit to you, mate. And thank you very much for your time. And hopefully we can catch up soon for a roll, buddy.
Yes, I definitely hope so, Brent. Thank you for
cheers, buddy.
the invite. Cheers, mate.